It happened between customers. I was folding silk scarves at the front counter of my boutique when my phone buzzed. A quick glance, just to check if it was my supplier. Instead, it was from Derek. The message read, "I'm leaving you. Tessa and I are moving to Miami tomorrow. I've emptied the joint account. Don't try to stop us. Goodbye." I stared at the screen for a moment. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't catch. The only sign that my 12-year marriage had just detonated was the subtle tightening around my eyes. I took a long, quiet breath and turned back to Mrs. Bloom, who was deciding between two silk wraps. I helped her choose the coral one. Wrapped it in our signature silver tissue paper. Took her payment with a smile. Only after the doorbell chimed and the boutique emptied did I pick up my phone and type 2 words. Good luck. My name is Lena Rivers. I'm 38, and I just received a breakup text that would destroy most people. But not me. Because I saw it coming. For months, the signs had been blinking like neon. Late nights that didn't match his pay stubs, his sudden obsession with fitness, the new clothes, the new cologne, the locked phone, the fake smiles. 3 months ago, I found a receipt for a candlelit dinner for 2 at a restaurant we'd never been to. On a night Derek claimed he was working late. That same night, I opened a separate account at a different bank. A week later, when he suggested combining all our finances for simplicity, I smiled and agreed. I even made a show of it. Meanwhile, I slowly siphoned my personal savings away from the joint account he thought he controlled. The joint account, the one he had just emptied, had barely enough to keep up appearances. 2 months' worth of standard deposits. The rest, my real savings, my safety, my plans, had been moved silently under his nose. And while Derek was busy pretending to be young again, I was gathering receipts. Logging transactions. Meeting with a lawyer after hours. Preparing for this exact day. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. We leave tomorrow morning. I'll send for my things later. I could almost picture him, sitting smugly beside Tessa, his 20-year-old assistant. She had been all smiles and big eyes at the company Christmas party. I remembered how she laughed too loud at his stories, how her hand lingered on his shoulder just a second too long. She was young, naive, and had no idea what she was running toward. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the back office, locked the door, and picked up the phone. My lawyer answered on the second ring. "It's time," I said. She didn't ask for context. She already had the paperwork. "Do you want him served in Miami?" Let him enjoy his illusion a little longer. That evening, I sat in my house, sipping the good wine I'd been saving. Derek had tried for years to get me to add his name to the deed. But the house had belonged to my grandmother, and I'd inherited it solely in my name. Another one of those quiet instincts that now felt like divine wisdom. I found our wedding album while looking for the documents my lawyer would need. Derek looked like a different man in those photos. Back when he didn't chase youth because he hadn't lost it yet. Before the tight shirts and bad slang. Before he traded dignity for delusion. My phone buzzed again. "I know this is hard. You're not getting any younger. At least you have your little shop." I actually laughed. My little shop. The boutique I built from scratch, the one he mocked for years as my hobby. The business that made more money than his middle management job ever did. A shop he never understood, never supported, and never thought to respect. The shop that had quietly become my empire. I opened my laptop and pulled up the evidence folder. Screenshots of text messages, bank transfers, credit card statements, dated and sorted. And there it was. His final mistake. By the way, I used the joint card for our plane tickets and hotel. Call it a parting gift. LOL. Perfect. Tomorrow morning, Tessa and Derek would arrive at the airport with big dreams and matching luggage. And they'd find out just how much of that dream had been built on stolen money. And just how quickly I could make it disappear. The sun hadn't yet risen when I made the call. The voice on the other end was chipper despite the early hour. "Good morning. Thank you for calling Horizon Travel Card Services. This is Elaine. How can I help you?" "I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card immediately," I said, keeping my tone calm and direct. Elaine responded with practiced precision. "Of course, ma'am. Can you verify the suspicious transactions?" "Yes. 2 first-class tickets to Miami. Booked yesterday afternoon. Hotel charges at the Royal Palm. and I need to remove my husband, Derek Rivers, as an authorized user on the account. Do you have documentation of the fraud? I do, I said, clicking open the folder on my computer. Text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book travel with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. There was a slight pause. Understood. Please forward those to the address I'll send. We'll begin the cancellation process immediately. I can also flag your account for additional protection. Please do. Within minutes, the transactions were reversed, the card was deactivated, and Derek's name erased from access. By the time they reached the airport, their plans would dissolve at the check-in counter. A small win. But it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming control. I spent the rest of the morning gathering everything my lawyer would need. Tax records, property deeds, boutique ownership documents. Every dotted line and every notarized seal told the same story. I built this life. And I had protected it better than Derek ever knew. Just after 9, another text arrived. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay until you find something smaller. I set my coffee down and actually laughed out loud. The house he had no legal claim to. The house I had inherited and never added him to. No matter how often he hinted, joked, or pushed. He must have truly believed his name was all he needed. Another message followed. I know the boutique means a lot to you. We can split it fairly. Split it? My boutique? The business I had started with a $5,000 inheritance and a sewing machine? The one I stayed up until midnight to run while he fell asleep on the couch? The shop he once called just a phase? He didn't even know where I sourced my inventory. I didn't reply. Instead, I poured a second cup of coffee and watched the early morning light spill across my showroom floor. The racks were full. Orders were already waiting to be packed. A delivery of designer handbags would arrive by noon. Life didn't stop because someone decided to abandon it. Especially not mine. At 10 o'clock, the first furious voicemail came in. I didn't answer, but I listened. Derek's voice, high-pitched and frantic, echoed through the speaker. What the hell did you do to the credit card? The airline won't honor our tickets. The hotel says our reservation was cancelled. You need to fix this. I let it play out while adjusting a mannequin near the window. By noon, there were 5 more. The last one was just a string of curses and an abrupt click. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Gloria Rivers. His mother. Lena dear, she began sweetly. Derek told us everything. About how controlling you've been. How you pushed him away. And now you're being vindictive. He says you're trying to sabotage his future with Tessa. I tapped the phone screen, putting her on speaker while I refold the display table. Did he mention draining our joint account? I asked. Or charging plane tickets and a hotel room for his girlfriend on our credit card? Silence. He said. You left him no choice. Would you like me to read you his text messages? The ones where he mocks my age and brags about taking our money. Another long pause. He did seem cruel. I told him texting you like that was inappropriate. I sighed. Gloria, I've always liked you. But I think it's best we end this conversation here. My attorney advised minimal contact with Derek's family during the proceedings. Proceedings? She echoed, the word catching like a thorn. Goodbye, Gloria. I ended the call and slid my phone back into my pocket. The boutique was full now, buzzing with midday shoppers. A few regulars dropped by with warm smiles and whispered support. Word had begun to spread. Small-town gossip moved faster than the morning news. But instead of shame, I felt something else. Power. By late afternoon, Derek's sister, Natalie, had apparently joined the fray. I overheard from one of my clients that she was telling everyone Derek and Tessa were holed up at a budget motel near the airport. Derek had tried to pay for another hotel with a personal credit card, one that had already been maxed out. Another red flag I'd noticed, weeks ago. My lawyer called just before closing. We have an emergency hearing scheduled for Monday, she said. Given the text message evidence and the financial misconduct, we're in an extremely strong position to freeze all remaining assets. Has he been served yet? Not yet. But we'll have the papers delivered to the motel address on file. I glanced out the boutique window. The street lights were flickering on, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. His girlfriend's social media is also proving helpful, my lawyer added. She's been posting selfies all day, including one captioned, "Escape with Bae," with geotags. Perfect, I said. Let them keep documenting. As I turned off the boutique lights and locked the door, I thought of Derek, pacing the dirty floor of some two-star motel, trying to figure out how his perfect escape had crumbled overnight. He thought he had it all planned. But I had been planning longer. Saturday morning came with a wave of texts, each one more erratic than the last. Derek was unraveling. "You think you're so clever," he wrote. "But I made copies of your boutique's financial records. Half of that business is mine." I didn't respond. I forwarded the message to my lawyer instead. She replied almost instantly. "Let him keep digging. He clearly doesn't understand how separate property works." Then came the voicemails. Angry at first. Accusatory. Then pitiful. Derek's voice cracking as he said things like, "You're blowing this way out of proportion, and you don't have to do this to me." I sat behind the boutique counter, organizing invoices while his desperation climbed in volume. I already knew his angle. If he couldn't manipulate me emotionally, he'd try to cast himself as the victim. He'd start with charm, lean into guilt, and end with threats. But I wasn't the same woman he married. And I certainly wasn't the one who stayed silent while he plotted his exit. Around noon, Natalie stopped by. Derek's sister looked sheepish, her designer handbag hanging limp in her fingers. "I know I'm the last person you want to see," she began. I looked up from the jewelry case I'd been restocking. "What changed?" She sighed, dragging her fingers through her hair. "He's living out of Tessa's studio now." She wasn't expecting him to stay past the weekend. They're arguing non-stop. Apparently, he told her you froze all the money out of spite. I raised an eyebrow. Did he also mention draining the joint account and charging the trip to a card he wasn't authorized to use? No. That part he conveniently left out. She looked down. I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry. We believed him at first. But now we see what he really is." I gave her a short nod. I didn't need an apology. But I appreciated the truth. Later that evening, I lit candles around the house, my house, and sat with a leather folder in my lap. Inside was the full portfolio my lawyer had compiled. Records of the boutique separate incorporation, dated years before Derek ever took an interest, a copy of my grandmother's deed, spreadsheets detailing how not a single dollar of Derek's income had ever been invested into the business. Derek had mocked my bookkeeping for years, said I was obsessive, too controlling. But now, those exact spreadsheets would save everything I'd built. Sunday morning brought fresh updates. My lawyer had located Tessa's social media profile. She was now posting cryptic quotes about betrayal and finding strength. One photo showed Derek asleep on her tiny couch, a blanket barely covering his legs. Another included a comment from a friend, "Girl, you sure this is what you signed up for?" I didn't laugh. I didn't feel vindicated. I simply felt done. The emotional cord had been severed. Derek was a man who had tried to wreck my life like it was a chapter he could edit. He didn't know I'd written the ending long before he hit send on that cowardly text. By Sunday evening, the boutique was reset for Monday's new inventory. I walked through each aisle, checking every display like I had 100 times before. But this time it felt different. Like I was preparing not just for a new week, but for a new era. Just before I locked the doors, I received a call from Gloria. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, she texted, "I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. I didn't know the full story. Derek has been difficult. I hope you're okay." I stared at the message for a long second, then set the phone down without replying. He had them fooled. But not anymore. The court hearing was set for 9 a.m. the next morning. My lawyer said Derek's new attorney had only just come on board. Someone with a specialty in contract law, not family litigation. He was unprepared, underinformed, and likely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of evidence my team had compiled. It would be a long morning. But I was ready. Let him wear his new designer blazer. Let him show up pretending to be the aggrieved party. Because when that judge saw the texts, the bank transfers, and the receipts, only one truth would remain. He didn't just leave. He tried to steal. And I wasn't letting him take a damn thing. The courthouse echoed with low murmurs as I stepped through the glass doors, the morning air still clinging to my skin. My heels clicked across the marble floor with quiet certainty. I wore a charcoal blazer, simple and structured, nothing flashy, but everything intentional. Mark, my attorney, met me at the security checkpoint with a nod and a file tucked under his arm. "He's here," he said. "With his lawyer." I didn't ask what Derek looked like. I didn't need to. But when I entered the courtroom and saw him seated across the aisle, it was almost surreal. The man who had once shared my bed now sat hunched in a suit that tried too hard, nervously tapping his fingers on the table. His new attorney, a young man with an expensive watch and uncertain eyes, leaned in and whispered furiously. Tessa wasn't with him. She was probably still in her studio apartment, scrolling through job listings or packing whatever hope she had left. From what we'd seen online, their dream had crumbled the moment real life knocked on their door. The judge entered, a sharp woman in her 60s with silver hair and a gaze that sliced through pleasantries. She opened the file, cleared her throat, and began. "Mrs. Rivers," she addressed me first, "you've submitted documentation indicating financial misconduct by your spouse, as well as evidence regarding the status of the boutique and your residence. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." Mark stood and presented our exhibits. Each document was labeled, time-stamped, and organized. Texts from Derek bragging about draining the joint account. Credit card records showing charges to a hotel and airline. Screenshots of Tessa's posts showing their travel timeline. A detailed paper trail of the boutique's incorporation, dated 2 years before our marriage. Property records proving the house had never left my name. Derek shifted in his seat. I watched his expression change with each piece of evidence. First annoyance, then disbelief, and finally, panic. He leaned into his lawyer again, but the man looked helpless, flipping pages with sweaty fingers. Then it was their turn. "Your Honor," Derek's attorney began, voice unsteady. "While my client acknowledges some poor decisions, we argue that the boutique's growth during the marriage entitles Mr. Rivers to a portion of the profits. Additionally, we believe the plaintiff's actions, freezing accounts and canceling travel arrangements, were retaliatory in nature." Mark rose calmly. "My client's actions were not retaliatory. They were protective. She preserved her separate assets, documented every move, and acted within her legal rights." The judge raised a hand. "Enough." She flipped a page in the file. "Mr. Rivers, you stated via text message that you deliberately emptied your joint account and used marital funds to finance a trip with another woman. Do you deny this?" Derek stood, visibly sweating. I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to make a clean break. By committing financial fraud? I didn't think. Clearly." The judge leaned back, her expression unreadable. Then she addressed the room. "The court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct. All joint assets are hereby frozen until final settlement. Mr. Rivers is ordered to return any funds removed from the account within 24 hours. Derek paled. "That money's gone," he muttered. "Then I suggest you find a way to replace it," the judge said coldly. "As for the boutique, the court acknowledges it as a separately established business. Documentation shows that Mr. Rivers provided no direct investment, and in fact, referred to the business in text messages as a hobby and little shop. The court does not find any evidence of entitlement to its assets." Derek sat down hard. I didn't smile. Not here. Not now. But a small, quiet weight lifted from my chest. When the hearing adjourned, I exited the courtroom without looking back. But I heard him. His voice low, desperate, trailing behind me like a shadow. "You planned this," he hissed. "You knew this would happen." I stopped, turned just enough to meet his eyes. "No, Derek. I didn't know. I just paid attention." Gloria was waiting near the doors, her posture stiff. She didn't speak as Derek passed her, but I caught a glimpse of her expression, disappointment, edged with something final. She turned to follow her son, but not before glancing back at me. For once, there was no accusation in her eyes. Outside, the air smelled like rain, though none had fallen. I stood on the courthouse steps, my bag in one hand, my future in the other. Derek thought he'd written the final chapter with that text message. But he forgot one thing. I owned the pen. The days that followed the hearing unfolded like slow-motion collapse. Derek's silence lasted less than 48 hours. Then came the texts, unfiltered, erratic, desperate. You destroyed me. I never meant to hurt you. You'll regret being so cold. Each message dripped with deflection. There were no apologies, just wounded pride dressed up as regret. I forwarded them all to Mark, who added them to our ever-growing file. Not because we needed more proof, but because Derek was determined to dig deeper, and I had no intention of stopping him. The boutique meanwhile thrived. The morning after the court ruling, a local business reporter showed up at my door. Word had spread fast and wide. The story wasn't about my marriage. It was about a woman who built something, protected it, and refused to let a man walk away with it. Customers came in not just to shop, but to support. Women I didn't know shared stories of their own breakups, betrayals, second chances. Some came just to say thank you. He said I was crazy for keeping separate accounts, one woman said while trying on a velvet blazer. Now I know better. In some twisted irony, Derek had finally given my boutique the recognition he never believed it deserved. I expanded within a month. Rented the space next door and knocked out the wall. Launched a new handbag line with a local designer. Hired 2 more staff. Business doubled. And Derek? He moved out of Tessa's studio after just 3 weeks. Rumors said he'd worn out his welcome by complaining about her decor, her cooking, her refusal to co-sign a lease on a new place. She ended it quietly, changed her phone number, removed every trace of him from her social media, and began posting quotes about lessons learned. Mark updated me weekly. Derek's latest petition to revisit the settlement had been denied. He claimed the boutique's success was new evidence, but the judge wasn't buying it. He argued moral support. My lawyer responded with text messages where Derek called my boutique a waste of time. Even his family began to turn away. Natalie texted me once, short and simple. I'm sorry again. You were right. We just didn't want to believe it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. His mother called too. Her voice softer now. Older. He's not the man I raised, she said. I tried to help. But he just blames everyone. The courts. You. Even me. I know, I said. And I'm sorry. But it's not your responsibility anymore. After that, she stopped calling. I suspected she saw the futility in defending someone determined to self-destruct. Then came the business award. The local Chamber of Commerce awarded my boutique Entrepreneur of the Year. They cited growth, innovation, leadership. During the ceremony, as I stood holding the plaque under the stage lights, someone in the crowd asked, "What inspired you to keep going after everything you went through?" I smiled. Sometimes, I said, the best foundation for a strong future is being underestimated. That line made the papers. It trended on local blogs. And it haunted Derek. He filed one last petition, this time claiming he'd emotionally supported my business from the beginning. He even tried to claim the boutique name was his idea. I sent Mark an old email, Derek mocking the name when I first pitched it, calling it too soft and doomed to fail. The petition was dismissed in under 5 minutes. Mark told me Derek had been sanctioned by the court, ordered to pay part of my legal fees for wasting time with frivolous filings. The final blow to a man who once believed he held all the cards. The last I heard, he moved back into his parents' house. Tried to land another job in management, but the reputation he left behind made companies cautious. No one wanted to hire someone whose ex-wife had become a public symbol of meticulous, unshakable success. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. One evening, as I closed the boutique, I walked through the store alone. The shelves were full. The books balanced. The space glowed in the warm light, soft music humming in the background. On the wall behind the register, I had hung a framed screenshot. Derek's final text. Have fun with your little shop. Below it, I added a brass plaque. It read. And I did. 2 years passed. Not quickly, not easily, but with purpose. The boutique became more than just a business. It became a destination. A statement. A place where women came to feel powerful again. And me? I had become someone I never thought I'd need to be. Fierce. Focused. Unapologetically self-reliant. We opened our 3rd location last spring. The grand opening was filled with flashing cameras, influencers, local media, even a few quiet glances from former skeptics who now stood in line to shop. I gave a short speech on the sidewalk in front of the ribbon. I talked about growth, about passion, and about how sometimes the things meant to destroy you are the very sparks that set you free. As I finished, a familiar face appeared in the crowd. Sophie, one of our new hires, barely 21, bright-eyed and full of ambition. She clutched a notebook, waiting until the crowd thinned before approaching me. "I heard your story," she said shyly. "Everyone talks about it. Not the divorce, what you built after. That's what inspired me to apply." I smiled at her, truly smiled. What matters isn't what knocks you down, Sophie. It's what you build while you're getting back up. We walked back inside together, the store already alive with chatter and footsteps. A few days later, my lawyer called with one final update. "Thought you'd want to know," Mark said. "Derek filed for bankruptcy." I didn't flinch. "And the boutique?" "Untouchable," he said with a grin in his voice. "Just like you planned." It was a poetic ending, though I never needed one. His downfall wasn't my goal. His karma wasn't my victory. My victory was what I built after he left. What I protected when he underestimated me. The woman I became when he tried to reduce me to a footnote in his new chapter. Later that night, I visited my first store, the original boutique where it had all started. It had changed over the years, expanded and remodeled, but the soul of it was the same. The same wood floors, the same corner desk where I'd once stayed late to balance the books while Derek complained about my hobby. On the wall behind the counter was something new. A clean, black frame with gold lettering beneath glass. It contained a simple phrase etched in permanent ink. "Success is the best response to betrayal." Below it, that infamous message. "Have fun with your little shop." Customers often paused to read it. Some asked if it was real. I always told them the truth. That it wasn't bitterness that made me frame it. It was perspective. A reminder. Not of him but of me. Of who I became when I finally stopped waiting for someone else to believe in me. At our 5-year anniversary celebration, Gloria Rivers arrived uninvited. She looked smaller somehow, thinner, dressed impeccably but with less confidence than I remembered. She waited until most of the crowd had filtered out before approaching me quietly near the champagne table. "I saw Mark," she said softly. "At the pharmacy. He's still angry. Still blaming everyone but himself." I didn't say anything. I let her continue. "I just wanted to tell you. You were right. Not just about him. But about yourself. We should have supported you from the beginning." I gave a nod. "Thank you." She looked around the store, our newest location, sleek and vibrant and filled with women laughing and trying on things they once thought they couldn't afford. Her gaze landed on the framed message. "He still doesn't understand," she murmured. "He thinks you took everything from him. But he never saw what he had." "No," I replied gently. "He saw it. He just didn't value it." She nodded once, then turned to go. I didn't stop her. There was nothing left to say. As the lights dimmed and the music faded, I stood in the quiet of the store, surrounded by everything I had fought to protect. Not just my boutique, but my dignity, my freedom, my power. Derek thought he was writing the final page of our story with that cruel text message. But all he did was free my hands to start a better one. And this time, I made sure every word was mine.